Tell me a good horror or thriller without a monster. Okay, apart from that. Okay, I'm trying to say, you don't have a good monster movie if you don't have a good monster. It's an unwritten rule that I had to write down in order to say. And whether it can perv on someone on the 40th floor or can be kept in a picnic basket, they always leave a lasting impression on us. Even the ones with little screen time. Some of these abominations you kind of root for. And there's some good ones that star in horror shorts that don't get talked about much. Maybe it's because they don't have that much to discuss, but I'm gonna try and do it anyway. Don't worry, I won't try and spoil anything. Booty-O for a while were the boys and girls of the short horror genre. They had a lot of popularity before Alter kind of overtook them. They make quick samples of fright fixes that have a kind of comedic tang to them. Some of them can even be trolly. They star a bunch of cookie-cutter monsters that I wish Hollywood would take notice of, due to the fact they're terrified of having their films be the slightest bit campy. For example, Ninja Clown Monster. It's about a kid who's engrossed in his foreshadowy comic, while a creepy clown doll plays a game of red light, green light, being kind of a too familiar throwback to Poltergeist. It's entertaining enough for multiple views that actually made me notice this thing. I'm probably pushing a theory for the sake of a theory, but could this thing or relic be responsible for giving this doll life? Who knows? I feel that the scary stories that don't have the final conclusion at night have villains that are so gangster they're not going to wait until the sun sets to strike, such as the well-dressed chap from Don't Look Away. Just like the clown doll, the only way you can beat it is keeping your eyes on it, even though looking at something like this for too long is going to damage some of your sanity. It's a really weird, disturbing design. The whole thing's fantastic, unlike the acting from the other characters. But don't worry, the cool demeanor of Baghead makes up for it, and that's as far as I can go. YouTube's been around for a long time, and even though every idea has been repeated more times than I can count, back in the day when it was fresh, it was known for this infamous creepy gem. It's about a driver who comes to a town void of any people, apart from a strange population of mannequins that are more than meets the eye. The unnerving feel is like from the Twilight Zone's episode After Hours, and even from the movie Tourist Trap. What I found interesting is it's kind of debatable whether this is a horror. I guess it's fair to say it's a thriller because I don't think the mannequins are really the monsters. You just gotta see it to know what I mean. Lights Out is a real heartstopper. Usually fiction like this has a monster or creature bound to some kind of rules or pseudoscience, but I think it's mostly true of this female victim, with the obsession of flicking the lights on and off when something in the brain has to be saying, "Stop it and run." There is no word of dialogue throughout the film, as we watch the lady call it a night only to get tormented by a dark figure. It's incredibly suspenseful. Ever since the days of Nosferatu, the whole bunkering down under your bedsheet has always been a popular last resort, and it definitely encapsulates the terror that we even saw in Ninja Clown Monster. The tension only grows with its snail pace. It's definitely something to watch with headphones. Cookie, spelt with a K, brought to you by the glorious minds of Alter. They have their own take and style on the sinister shorts. I think a lot of us have had that dread of dealing with an object that freaked you out in your own home the rest of your family didn't really pick up on. To me, it was a creepy chef statue that plagued the kitchen, just like this horrific cookie jar. And when this little girl ends up giving in to her gluttony, she ends up biting on more than she can chew. Again, I might be overthinking this, but I think the mother knows what she's doing putting this thing in the house. It had to come from some old antique store, right? I mean, I don't even think an abusive parent would buy something like this. The Cat with Hands has the charm of being gothic and dark enough to classify as a bedtime story that is too terrifying to tell kids. It's 3 minutes of pure atmosphere and creepy English monologue. Well, granted, when you think about A Cat with Hands, images like this come to mind. But forget about that, it's about a guy who looks like the kind of guy who would tell you a creepy tale that sounds something made up, but you just have to hope it's made up. In the story within a story, it uses some really good, disturbing stop-frame animation that kind of amplifies the surrealism, prepping you up for one of the most peculiar creatures to grace the net. Face it, I can't talk about these kind of things without mentioning this bad boy. It's one of the many entities that a group of people are willing to risk their lives to protect you from it. But they're also protecting you from a Coca-Cola where you never have to rest. So it's a double-edged sword. SCP-096 from SCP-096. There's been some decent attempts at adaptating the SCP Foundation. Check out SCP Dollhouse. But this short definitely lives up to the terrifying reputation of this SCP. Even though the creature's made out of special effects, it's still really good, being told through several flashbacks to how the Shy Guy broke out in the first place, and its gruesome rampage, giving us also a look into the Foundation's military muscle and tech capabilities, in order to recapture it. There's also a legit mystery going on. Oh yes, and they also never showed its face. One of the many pros of the World Wide Web is simply you can just get your shit out there. That's why there's an avalanche of this stuff. One of the oldest I ever saw was the James Mason version of The Telltale Heart, and I also saw Horsehair. It's an eerie, unpleasant cautionary tale of being a sloth. It's a real twisted view of something as simple as luxury furniture. But again, that's all I can say for that. Thanks for listening to me speak my mind, and all I can say is I wish I could make one of these one day.